everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome into GC Live. I am Kendall Smith, joined alongside of Wes Mitchell, and plenty to get to today in the world of Gamecock athletics. But Wes, I guess I'll just start it off asking how you're doing so that the whole world can know how Wes Mitchell's life has been over the last week since we last did a GC Live.
Yeah, we last did one. I look back, it was exactly 1 week ago. We knew there was momentum building. We knew it was coming, but it has continued. So, it's been exciting. I always tell y'all I like covering athletics when the fans are excited and pumped up. June, there's not a whole lot else going on, so recruiting carries the day for us. It always carries the day for us on Gamecock Central, I feel like, but certainly right now when there's nothing else going on. So I've been thankful to have stuff to write about. There's been plenty for Carolina fans to talk about, and there's plenty for us to talk about today on GC Live as well.
Yeah, but before we get into all of that, we would like to give a shout out to our sponsors. We'll start it off with Clint Hammond of the Mortgage Network, the presenting sponsor for GC Live. If you need any help with your mortgage, be sure to reach out to Clint Hammond. He's a certified military home specialist. Among other things, you can reach out to him at 803-576-4450. His NMLS number is 71597, and you can email him at chammond@mortgagenetwork.com. He's also on all of the social medias, as you can tell. Yeah, Clint Hammond, he is our guy. He's so awesome every single week. We appreciate all that he does for Gamecock Central. And Wes and I were just talking about buying houses before we clicked record. I may be in the market for a house in like a year or so.
And you're going to go through Clint, right?
And I'm totally going to go through Clint, like absolutely. Exactly. And then also Liberty Tax, a big shout out to them as well. One of our other sponsors here on GC Live. We'll talk about them a little bit later in the show. But Wes, we've got to get into everything over the past week for Gamecock football. We talked last week on GC Live about some of the other commits. So if you're on the show today and you didn't check out last week's episode and you're like, why are they only talking about 4 commits instead of everyone who's committed over the last week and a half or so? That's because we broke down all of the other commits last week. We have video with it, so be sure to check out that GC Live. But today we are going to be breaking down every commit since the last time that we chatted. So South Carolina with 4 public commitments over the last week or so. We'll get into talking about all of them, starting with Jalen Kilgore, a safety out of Putnam County High School in Eatonton, Georgia. This was a big one for the Gamecocks. He announced it last Wednesday in front of lots of his friends and family in his hometown. It was a big one for the Gamecocks. So, Wes, tell me, what do you know about Jalen and what he could bring to South Carolina?
Yeah, we kind of teased this last week, Kendall. I think we were waiting on him to make his announcement when we did the show. I don't know if it was the day before or the day of, but I know certainly, we felt good about where South Carolina was. He actually told the staff he was coming during his, actually right after his official visit on that Sunday. He was one of the other Sunday welcome homes. You had the 3 that were debuted or, by the kids on Sunday. They were still kind of waiting on the other. The other was Jalen Kilgore. He announced on that Wednesday night at his church. And, actually the most highly rated prospect on South Carolina's commitment list right now, 4-star guy, and can do a little bit of everything. You see him on the film right now. He actually plays wide receiver as well, but is recruited to South Carolina to play safety. It's a guy that can come down and hit you. Great ball skills as far as, that speaks back to that wide receiver background. So it's a guy that can go out and make some plays and the ball's in the air. You see a great catch from him right here, keeping his foot in bounds and holding on to the football. And, a well-rounded kid, seems to have his sort of life in order, seems to be a pretty mature kid as well. And we talked about it last week, I'm pretty sure. South Carolina was the first Power 5 offer for Kilgore. Then, Kendall, it just absolutely kind of blew up from there. Oklahoma had offered him. He took an official visit to there. Clemson offered him. Florida, Ole Miss. You're talking about obviously some really good programs from around the country. So I thought it was very. I thought it was a big factor that South Carolina got in early and was able to go ahead and start building that relationship with some kids. They never forget who was first. I think last week I said South Carolina was literally the first offer. There were, I went back and looked, there were a couple of smaller schools, but South Carolina was definitely the first Power Five and certainly the first SEC offer. So good job there by Torian Gray to hop in, start building the relationship early, got him on campus several times. He was on campus for the spring game. He was on campus for his official visit towards the beginning, middle part of June. And then, of course, committed to South Carolina last Wednesday. Huge get. You look at the seniors at safety right now. Kilgore will be a freshman, obviously, in 2023. That position will be wide open for a guy like him to possibly come in and make an immediate impact, I think, for South Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got a question. Are all of these commits for next year or 2024 also? All of the commits that we are going to be going over today, with the exception of Jalen Daniels, are in the class of 2023. Jalen Daniels will be coming in this year. He's a class of 2022 guy. And then there was an announcement made earlier in the week about a welcome home that has not been announced yet. We don't know who the public commitment is for 2024. But all of the guys that we're talking about today, except Jalen Daniels, coming in the class of 2023, Daniels 2022. But yeah, Jalen Kilgore, great kid. I had the opportunity to talk to him in an exclusive interview on Gamecock Central. Really, really enjoyed it. As you mentioned, someone who does really seem to have his life together, extremely mature for his age, for someone going to be a senior in high school. We talked about a lot of different things, the people who have inspired him. We talked about his weird food combinations that he likes to eat. He likes honey and crackers, but Ritz crackers. So like kind of graham cracker vibes, but a little different. So we'll have to try that out, Wes. I know that you like came at me the other week because you said that I actually don't try any of the weird food combinations that
Yeah,
they
because you
talk
don't.
about. Well, we're going to make that happen here on Gamecock Central. But yeah, Jalen, a huge get for South Carolina and winning those big boy recruiting battles as well against teams like Clemson, Ole Miss, other SEC schools. We talk about South Carolina continuing to grow as a program and continuing to improve. And a part of that comes from winning recruiting battles like this. And then you start to get into recruiting battles with schools like Georgia and Alabama. And when you can start to win those, that is when you can tell that things are really going well. So like you said, a huge recruiting push for South Carolina over this past week. And another one of those names that committed is Judge Collier. He's a cornerback out of Legion Collegiate in Rock Hill, South Carolina. So a local Palmetto State guy coming in for the Gamecocks. He committed a couple days after Jalen Kilgore. So I don't know if we have any video on Judge, but he's a guy that I haven't had the chance to talk to yet. Haven't had the chance to see a ton of his tape, but I know that people within the program are super excited about that commitment.
Yeah, they are. You threw me off there, Kendall. I had another one ready to
Oh,
go.
come on. I'm sorry.
So
I'm
it's
so sorry.
okay.
I'm keeping you on
I
your
think I
toes.
got him queued up.
Okay.
The problem with, and I get it, they got to pay the bills. The problem with Huddle is you also have to um, sit through an ad, normally about not vaping. Like the Huddle folks really do not want you to vape. Anybody that watches a lot of high school highlights,
That's good.
you will see it's always about the dangers of vaping. I was
Sounds
about to
good
say it's
to
always
get out
about
there to high
vaping.
school people.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right, let's see if we can watch some Judge Collier here. I think we got it. This is a kid we've got him listed as an athlete on 3. A guy that's played some quarterback, I think, has played all over corner, some free safety, and but would be a DB for South Carolina. I think, could he be a corner? Could he be a safety? I would imagine that's something that probably will be determined once he gets into the system, once they sort of see how he fits in. But I think this kid fits that mold of. You've seen South Carolina in the past have a lot of success of saying, hey, great athlete from the state of South Carolina, wants to be here. These are the guys you kind of fill out your class with. Obviously, you've got to win some, like you talked about, the big boy recruiting battles. You got to win those for the top of your class. And then, you've got to fill out your class as well. And I think Collier's a guy tested very, very well at South Carolina's camp. He was a camp evaluation. A lot of your in-state guys that maybe don't have the other bigger offers, you want to see them in person. You want to work with them. If you're Torian Gray, you really want to sort of coach them up and see how they respond. Do they take well to coaching? Do they take well to hard coaching? do they quickly adjust to what you're asking of them? So this was a camp evaluation. Again, that's something South Carolina will, and all schools will take a big, I would say, put a lot of stock into that. So with Collier, they liked what they saw. They offered him. And as soon as they offered, I think it was more about when than if he was going to end up at South Carolina. And, it didn't take long. He actually committed to South Carolina. I'll be honest, y'all, it's all kind of running together. He committed to South Carolina privately last Wednesday, which was the same day that Jalen Kilgore committed publicly to South Carolina. So y'all will remember there were 2 welcome homes on that Wednesday. One was in the morning, one was at night. The nighttime one was the one that was a 2024 that has not been revealed. The earlier one that day actually was Judge Collier. He went public on Saturday, this past Saturday, which interestingly enough, on Saturday, there were also 2 more welcome homes, one of which was Cameron Sandlin, who we'll talk about here shortly, that is public, and one of which is not yet public. So y'all can fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure I got all those right.
I mean, Wes, that was pretty impressive. Like, I'm seeing all of these tweets and I'm like, all right, this person committed this day and blah, blah, blah. And like, we obviously have some information that we know, but I'm like trying to just get it all right in my head because it has been nonstop, it seems, for like the past 2 weeks, just constant. But yeah, Judge, an in-state guy, and not too far away. So the family's going to be able to come watch him quite a bit. Rock Hill, just about an hour from Columbia, South Carolina. So
never a bad thing to get people from Rock Hill either, Kendall.
No, Rock Hill is kind of close to where you're from, Wes. And also they have very talented high school teams out in the Rock Hill area. Very, very talented group of teams that I remember hearing a lot about because I'm from just right over the border and my brother went to school in Rock Hill playing baseball at Winthrop. So good stuff for South Carolina. Interesting that he's listed as an athlete. South Carolina has gotten several of these guys in this 2023 class that are pretty versatile. And in high school, they play several different positions. So it's good for South Carolina. Obviously, they're recruiting them more than likely at just one position because when you get to college, it's awfully hard to be able to play more than one position. But it's always good to have that versatility and have somebody that can be flexible and someone who's been successful at more than one position. It speaks to their athleticism and their on-field ability. So a great thing for South Carolina with Judge. You just hinted at it there a little bit earlier, but Cameron Sandlin, another one of those athletes for South Carolina who committed. He's also listed as an athlete. He's out of Anniston School in Anniston, Alabama. So, Wes, let's roll the tapes on Cameron. Hopefully we got him pulled up and talk a little bit more about this recent commitment to South Carolina.
Yeah, let's say as an athlete, this is a kid that actually was getting quite a bit of attention as a true quarterback, which, sometimes you see guys, Kendall, where it's like pretty obvious early on that they're going to end up being another position. And, that they're pretty much right off the bat listed at another position or listed as an athlete. In this case with Cameron, he was recruited by certainly some smaller schools to play the quarterback position. But I think very quickly kind of realized, okay, I can play SEC level football if I'm willing to change positions, or I can play a little bit below that if I want to play quarterback. And I think this was a kid, a lot of quarterbacks don't want to transition away from that spot, but he was fully willing to do that. The very first time I talked to him, he had just got his offer from South Carolina. He said, look, I don't care what position I play. I just want to find a way to get onto the field. So South Carolina likes him as a tight end. You look at the tight end position, they kind of had to reestablish the board there because, you had the coaching change there, Eric Kimry leaving, Jody Wright coming in. A lot of the guys that South Carolina was recruiting at tight end when Kimry was here were sort of either had already committed or were like closing out their process, were like really far along in the recruiting process. So it was going to be kind of hard for Jody Wright to come in, brand new relationship, just meeting these guys to land them. So you kind of had to reshape the board a bit. This is a kid that he evaluated in person during the spring. Jody Wright really just kind of fell in love with him as a player. And you'll see in a lot of these tapes him running, not like your typical quarterback, I would say, thought process, like, or mentality is probably even a better word, Kendall. A lot of times we think of quarterbacks, maybe they don't want to get hit. They don't like people being around their feet when they're throwing, et cetera, et cetera. This is a kid that likes to enjoy the physical part of football. He enjoys blocking. He enjoys running hard. And, as you can see, he's got some speed to him as well. And I saw him at South Carolina's camp standing around this past week. Very well put together physically. Checked in at about 6'2", 215 pounds, but is just a really strong physical kid and will play sort of that Jaheim Bell role for South Carolina. So you look at Connor Cox, if you want to kind of compare it to current South Carolina or recent South Carolina players, Nick Muse, Austin Stogner, who's coming in, they're more of like your inline tight ends. They're going to be on the line of scrimmage, blocking, helping in the running game, but still also somewhat of a passing threat. That would be where I would put Connor Cox. You look at this kid, you look at Sandlin, he's going to be much more in that Jaheim Bell role, moved around, playing in the slot, in the backfield at times, and more of what you would call an H-back. So you can kind of almost see their thought process there, Kendall, with landing two high school tight ends, but they have a little bit different skill set, which is, I think, what you always want to do is have some kind of versatility to the guys you take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very quick. I enjoyed watching all those tapes of him just running. I'm like, good gosh, I'm short. I'm 5'2", so I have small legs. So I'm always very jealous of people who are able to move with
Just
such
running.
speed. Yeah, he is running. But that is good stuff for South Carolina. Cameron Sandlin listed as an athlete out of Anniston School in Anniston, Alabama. Hopefully we'll get the chance to chat with him soon. Now, the last person who committed to South Carolina was someone who came, I think, is a bit of a surprise to a lot of people who follow South Carolina football. I don't necessarily think that anyone was expecting for South Carolina to announce a quarterback commit, but Jalen Daniels took a preferred walk-on spot at quarterback for the Gamecocks. It was announced this past week, and it's actually really interesting. He is from Arizona, and he trains with Spencer Rattler. So the way that this all came to be, I guess, is that Spencer was training with Jalen, and he said, okay, I think that South Carolina would really like what they see with you. Ends up that South Carolina gets to see some tape of Jalen, and then they do like what they see. And from there, he's now committed as a preferred walk-on for the Gamecocks. So, Wes, I know you're really excited about this guy, and we've talked about him a little bit over the past few days and just the talent that you think he could bring to South Carolina.
Yeah, this kid, and you'll see in this film just the way he throws the football. Not your typical walk-on, not your average walk-on by any means. And this is someone who was behind. I'm still kind of putting together all the pieces of the exact details because you look at him, big kid, big arm, looks the part. He's a leader, got a great presence about him, and you kind of wonder how he's fallen, kind of slipped between the cracks the way that he has. But from what I understand, one of his seasons got completely wrecked by COVID. Was also playing behind some guys who ended up playing college football and were like already established that were a little bit older than him. And, had a really good final season playing out in California. And so South Carolina essentially fell in love with this guy's film. You're absolutely right. The Spencer Rattler connection was huge here in getting South Carolina involved. But this has been kind of playing out behind the scenes. I don't know, 3-4 weeks or so. Like South Carolina was looking into him, maybe even a little bit longer than that. I don't know the exact timeline, to be completely honest, but they were looking into the situation. He visited South Carolina basically sort of late last week into the weekend, unofficially, had his family with him, checked it all out, and South Carolina kind of wanted to spend a little more time around him, see what he was all about, see if this was going to be a possibility. He was set to go to junior college, even though he is in a position academically to be qualified. He was going to go to junior college just to sort of give the process a chance again to kind of reset, get new offers and stuff like that. He did have some Power 5 offers already, But South Carolina really, really likes him, wants him. They don't have room in the 85 right now to take another player as a scholarship player. So this is someone, if it works out, you could easily see him going on scholarship later on in the process, I think. But yeah, he's a 2022 guy. Will be on campus for for this fall. Will be on the roster. And hey, Marcus Satterfield, we've talked about it before, has done a phenomenal job recruiting quarterbacks. That's not even including, we hadn't even talked about the three we always talk about. Lonergan with the 23 class, Dante Reno, Jaden Bradford, both with the 24 class. He's got Carolina involved in some really good players and has gotten some really good players on campus. So credit where it's due. People can say what they want about what happened with the offense last year. Everybody's got their opinions on that. But credit where it's due. Carolina has really flipped this quarterback room in the last year or so.
Yeah. Looking at that tape, I mean, as you mentioned, not your average walk-on quarterback. He's, again, one of those guys that just sticks out. And all of these plays that are on the highlight tape, I think, really speak to the type of player he is. Training with Spencer Rattler and having that experience is a great thing. And then, it's too bad that his season was canceled and he ended up having to go through all that. But for South Carolina, this could have been a really sneaky pickup that I think a lot of people in the future might be like, we should have given him a little bit more of a look. Of course, we'll have to see how all these things shake up. And we talked about this yesterday. The quarterback room at South Carolina right now is just, I mean, after Spencer Rattler leaves, there's really no exact, I guess that I would be able to give right now where I'm like, oh yeah, that would certainly happen. Or I think X person will start or this person will be the backup. There are a lot of very talented quarterbacks in that room right now. Obviously, Spencer Rattler is going to start this year for South Carolina unless something crazy happens. But quarterback room right now, definitely crazy. That question's a good one by Trip. Do stars matter? I'm on the fence. However, stars matter at some point. Many perform better than where they are ranked. I look at offers too. Wes, the recruiting insider, would know the answer to this question.
Well, here's the thing. Stars 100% matter. You can look at the teams that are in the playoff every single year and then look at their rankings, and they're almost always, pretty much on average top 10, top 5 in the country. Look at the NFL draft. Of course, there are guys that slip through the cracks. That's going to happen. Think about this. Even as much information as NFL teams, like you want to take it forward, not from the high school kids, but I'm talking about the NFL teams evaluating college players. They have nearly unlimited sources of information on these players. And they still, about half of the first round picks end up being busts. So clearly it's not a science. It's not a sure thing. Nothing is a sure thing. But I look at the star rankings as being more important across large numbers as opposed to an individual. So point being, if you signed a class with all 3 stars, and then this other team signed a class with all 4 and 5 stars, I can almost all but guarantee you the team that signed all 4 and 5 stars will certainly be more talented and will probably be a better football team than the one that signed all 3 stars. That's just how it plays out. Now, if you give me 1 5-star and 1 3-star, and you say, and that's all the information I have, you say, who's going to be the best player? The percentages point to the 5-star. But that doesn't mean the 3-star can't end up being better. It just means, in my opinion, the 5-star on percentage has a better chance of being better than the 3-star. But you can't always take into account injuries could happen. You try, these guys try to take into account work ethic. Do you put forth the extra effort? Are you a fit? Scheme fit can matter. Do you have some off the field issues? Do you not have all those things? There's so many variables that play into it that if you're just looking, you can always find the outliers. You can always say, well, this 3-star is better than this 5-star. I look at it, Kendall, as percentages. It's just most 5-stars, there's going to be a better chance that they turn out. 5-stars are also your elite athletes. Those are the guys, when not that Jalen Daniels is a 5-star, but the way you said it, how he just pops off the screen. Your 5-stars in general, those are the guys that you don't have to be a college coach. You don't even have to watch football. If you went and watched a 5-star, you should be able to be like, who is that guy? Like it should just be like, it's just pop. And then, from there, it gets more and more to where the evaluation and like really being able to pick out, outliers and guys that can outplay, if a guy has 15 offers, it's not hard for the 16th coach to be like, oh man, this guy looks like a college player to me.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, 15 other schools thought the same thing. So yeah, offers, to your point, Trip, offers do matter. Now sometimes not all offers are created equal. You may offer a guy, but he may be further down your board. Everything is in percentages. Everything, there's sort of different, I would say, stages to everything. But in general, 5-stars have a better chance, but that doesn't mean 3-stars can't be better. But if you sign a bunch of 4 and 5-stars, you're going to be pretty talented.
Yeah. We all remember the famous Shane Beamer quote from the Georgia game last year. They've got 500 5-star linemen up there playing against South Carolina, who obviously did not have 500 5-star linemen up there. But you mentioned offers, you mentioned stars, ratings, all that jazz. And that brings us into our next point of conversation, which is the big official visit weekend that is happening this upcoming weekend at South Carolina. A ton of huge names on the high school recruiting scene coming down to Columbia. So, Wes, who are some of those guys that are going to be here this weekend?
Yeah, and first of all, I want to respond to one question real quick, Kendall. Somebody that keeps asking about Garnet Trust financials, which personally I have nothing to do with. But second of all, Garnet Trust does post their financials. Literally every single penny is accounted for and posted to the public. So that's not really anything I'm remotely worried about. But I'm not going to let somebody sit here and pretend that Garnet Trust does not post their financial information. And two, literally other than like little administration fees, sometimes you have credit card fees for processing and stuff like that. Every dollar that's come into Garnet Trust has also been earmarked to go out to a South Carolina student athlete. So no one, myself included, Chris Clark included, Brian Shoemaker, no one that's been remotely involved has actually made a single dime personally off of Garnet Trust. And I can literally look at the camera and say that without hesitation because it's true. So I want to get that out. You know what? I try to do my part and do things the right way. So I know 99% of the people we deal with are really, really cool and really respectful. But when somebody constantly comments on our stuff, basically not even hinting, saying that there's something wrong with the way I'm doing business, it does kind of bother me a little bit. So just putting that out there, I can rightfully say that we handle things the correct way and the honest way on Garnet Trust, and that the student athletes are getting paid via Garnet Trust and completely compliant as well. So for anybody else who had to hear that, I'm sorry. We'll get back to what we're here for, but I just needed to say that. Big official visit weekend coming up. Lots of guys on campus. And, Kendall, it kind of reminds me a bit of the June 10th weekend as well. South Carolina we talked about this leading into June, that they basically took 2 big weekends and they've kind of funneled their big visits into those 2 weekends. I think that's maybe allowed them to focus on those weekends a bit. It's allowed them to, maybe take a breather during, it wasn't an off week last weekend, but it was an off week as far as official visits go. So I think they also like the fact that they are able to kind of get the guys on campus at the same time and let them build those relationships with each other. I feel like there's some reason to the madness as far as getting guys who maybe have prior relationships on campus with each other, even down to, you have a guy, Aiden Williams, 4-star wide receiver out of Mississippi. His host this weekend is going to be Corey Rucker, who is a wide receiver out of Mississippi. So that all these things are done with great care, and all these things are done with a thoughtfulness. And so far, it has paid off. I thought the June 10th weekend went incredibly well. As you know, you almost always get good feedback from recruits. Like, you don't go on official visits and have a bad time, but they were able to, put themselves in a position to actually land several of those guys already, which is good. And that, I know the fans love that. Like, they love that they're not having to keep waiting. I've noticed when the welcome homes come out and they have to wait a long time, fans start to get a little bit impatient. So I think that's good for everybody. It keeps everybody excited. And they position themselves with other guys as well, who I think they're going to have a good shot with moving forward. And let me see real quick. I want to make sure I have the list in front of me, Kendall. But some big-time guys in this weekend. I mentioned Aiden Williams, 4-star Mississippi wide receiver. Carolina really wasn't even that involved with him as far as being a major factor. The Corey Rucker sort of connection there actually helped Carolina get involved, and now they get an official visit. We'll see if they can make a big move. They're certainly going to try to. Shantavian Bradley, he is the big-time edge rush defensive end kid that came in a couple of weeks ago on an unofficial visit. He has not confirmed to us that he's taking his official to South Carolina this weekend, but I've been told that's the expectation, that he'll be in town. So he took like a 3-day unofficial that went extremely well. He's actually the highest rated guy that will be on campus this weekend, the number 37 overall prospect in the country. I think this is a South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas A&M battle. So that one's going to be fun. That's one of those big boy battles. That'll be fun to watch. Some in-state guys, Marquis Anderson, DJ Geth, the big-time offensive lineman from Dorman. Big weekend for South Carolina with them. Couple of Florida linebackers, Grayson Howard, Jaden Robinson. They're buddies, and they've been highly recruited by South Carolina. Be interesting to see if Carolina can start to close those guys out and land commitments. Trayon Webb, 4-star running back that Carolina's been on for a while now. He's in town. A couple of committed guys, Trayvon Ball, Zabari Sandy. You've talked to both those guys for Gamecock Central interviews on YouTube. And, that's not the full list, but just a few guys to sort of keep an eye on. We'll, of course, have more information on that going forward, like leading into Saturday. And we also will have a ton of information, ton of content on them after as well.
Yeah, and, you mentioned there, Wes, that people don't leave the official visits and say, oh, it was a bad time and whatever, it was like so horrible. Because obviously these official visits are tailored to give these players an incredible experience. But people from the outside looking in might be like, what goes on? Like, what happens at an official visit? What is it that they're doing that makes it such a great experience? So can you kind of talk a little bit more about that and give people some more insight as to what goes on these weekends?
Yeah, so more and more, I think it's kind of cool. You see the visits catered more specifically to what the guys themselves are kind of into, right down to some of you will notice you'll see Jessica Jackson tweet about every now and then about his trips to the grocery store. And
she has to go to the one on not Rosewood, Gervais. We had a whole conversation about this.
Why? So by the way, they can go back. You talked to her. That's been a couple months now.
I think it came out at the end of January or beginning of February. I might tweet it out today just so people can go back and watch it, since it's OV season. It's like Jessica's time to shine. So
what was the reasoning?
She just said it's like quicker, a little bit more efficient. I think maybe the layout of the store is a little bit better, less crowded. I personally am a Rosewood Publix gal, but they always put the one on Gervais to get things for players that are coming in, because like you said, they find out their favorite candies, their favorite food, et cetera, and then they create little welcome baskets or whatever it might be.
I've actually run into her in there, and it's like a list that's just
a mile high.
I mean, yeah, crazy list
Yeah.
going through trying to. She looks when she's in there. She looks kind of like everybody has like the where they shop for you and deliver it to you now, and they're always like in there like looking for all this
Yes,
stuff.
yes,
But,
yes,
but
yes.
it's Jess in there herself, putting the personal touch, getting and it's a lot of times it's this type of candy, this type of chips, this type of drink. Body armor is better than vitamin water, by the way, Kendall. It's an inside joke
I
there.
knew you
But
were gonna say
so they're highly personalized just as far as having, the little details that do matter to a 17-year-old kid, right? Like
yeah,
if you like Skittles, it helps that they have Skittles for you.
right.
If you like Snickers, it helps that they have Snickers for you. So
Yeah.
all those things matter. And sometimes though it might be a note about, hey, this kid really, really, is into their major. Like, some guys pick a major, but they're not, it's all, it's more about football than school. Some guys, it might be like, this is what they want to do. This is what they want to be when they get done with football. Let's make an extra effort to make sure that the academic side with this guy is completely not just covered, but maybe there's a little extra on this side. So most of the time they come in, they've added this year a trip to Beamer's home, which is on, I believe the last week that was on Friday night. Yeah.
They had
So
like a lobster dinner or something.
they
I
had
was like,
some
that's
steak
amazing.
too, I think. There was like an ice cream truck, I believe, that came by. And you've got some local fare involved as well. Any of you that go to Soda City, my friends at Embellished Dough, they have cookies that they have like a cookie food truck out there. I know they're doing the like welcome home cookies this year. I think they've been doing them maybe for a couple of years now as well. So little things here and there so Saturday is like the big day. That is like takes up the bulk of the official visit. That's like the full on campus tour. Part of the time you're splitting the guys up from, where the families are learning about this. The players are going off with their hosts, meeting with academic advisors, meeting with position coaches, meeting with nutrition staff. Kristen Coggins and her staff doing cooking demos. That's always something that's very popular. Trying to think what else. It's not just facility tour, like it's the full on campus tour, on the golf carts and all that stuff. Then, Sunday is like the final push. I think you have breakfast, some final meetings, and then you have that one final head coach meeting, which is like Beamer's last kind of opportunity to sum up the weekend, get any final thoughts, and then you go from there. But it really is a busy week. And at the end, like the end of Friday, the end of Saturday, the guys, the prospects go out with their player hosts and can kind of get a feel for what it's like being an actual football player as opposed to kind of having everything, completely structured and everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this weekend big for South Carolina. And I think, people always, of course, they would base the success off of the weekend on how many people are committing, the welcome home tweets that you see. So, Wes, what do you think a successful weekend for South Carolina looks like? How many commits, if you were to give, a number range?
Oh, that's a good question, Kendall. Dang, put me on the spot, huh?
I said range, so that way you're not going to say like 5, and if it's not 5, people are going to be like, Wes Mitchell said it's an unsuccessful weekend for South Carolina football.
Okay, so last week there were four welcome homes on Sunday, and 3 of them revealed themselves the same day. The 4th was Kilgore on that Wednesday. The other commitments since then they were not official visitors from last weekend. So I'm right now, I think the number is at 13 that are set. One of them is Ahmad Brown, who's a kid out of Georgia that actually committed like 2 or 3 days ago to Ole Miss. So I don't know if he's coming or not anymore. I would guess maybe he's not. We'll see. So let's start with the number 12 being the official visitors. I will say, you know what? I was going to say 3 and be conservative. I'm gonna put the number at 4 again. I think they can land. I think they can land 4 guys. And I'm even talking pretty closely after. Like there's still a good chance they could land even more. That maybe they wait a little bit longer and then they commit. But Kendall, we've been talking about it for actually months now. That there'll be a lot of guys that want to take their visits in June and then decide pretty quickly after. There are no official visits. So this weekend is June 24th. There are no official visits that next weekend. So basically, you're getting the last official of the summer if a guy is on your campus this weekend. That probably helps for these kids that are going to be deciding pretty soon. You get the last remaining thought heading into what is a little bit of like a recruiting off season, I would call it. So I'm going to set it at 4. I think they're in a good place with several of these guys already.
Okay.
And I could see several of them going ahead and committing Sunday or quickly after.
We'll just wait for those tweets from Shane Beamer to come out. I like his hashtag. Hashtag that's 8 since Sunday. Or like they're these very long hashtags. And I think they're quite funny. But I always enjoy seeing the welcome home tweets. And class of 2023 starting to shape itself, and the class of 2024 won't be too far behind. As we mentioned already, a welcome home tweet coming out from a class of 2024 commit. That person has yet to be revealed. Not quite sure when that will go public. That could really be at any time, considering 2024 is still a good ways away, but never too early to start building a class around a player. And I think, for South Carolina, it's a very good thing to get a head start on that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you build out the core of your class this time of year. I think that's what they're doing so far. You can see kind of the meat of the class being built out. Like you said, if you can get an early start on the next class, I mean, just look at that group that was here last week for 2024. Both quarterbacks are in. Or that was the week before, actually. It is all running together. But the week before, midweek, you had Dante Reno in, you had Jaden Bradford in. Then you had, all the dudes from in-state that are highly recruited, Cam Pringle, Josiah Thompson, the big offensive lineman. You had MJ Bennett, Mazio Bennett, 4-star wide receiver. South Carolina's all over him. He's from Greenville. You look at Blake Frank that they just offered, or Blake Franks, excuse me, that they just offered. He's a 2024 kid, in-state offensive lineman that's also at Greenville. He is Mazio's teammate. And, they've had all those guys in recently. So you can kind of already see the core group that they're trying to build with that class as well. Kendall, I actually think you look at how they've kind of gotten set up now with a full recruiting cycle, a full year to start to build relationships. I think it's going to be a solid 2023 class. I think 2024 is the one that already sets up to be a potential difference maker, with South Carolina moving forward.
Yeah. Good stuff. Well, Wes, I think we covered pretty much all of it over the past week, and then what's to come for this weekend on the official visits. Quick question. If Arch picks Georgia and Stockton transfers, do you think we would look at him, or has that ship sailed? What do you think, Wes?
Yeah, and I don't really have a great answer for this question. I know Craig is on our show a pretty good bit, and he had a question. So I wanted to make sure there were several questions in here. I did want to make sure we hit maybe a couple of them. So, I don't know, Craig. I do feel like, and I haven't really followed the Arch recruitment. He feels like a Georgia guy to me for some reason. Like he feels like a UGA vibe. So if that happens, I don't know, man. I really think, honestly, Craig, quarterback situations change so incredibly quick that it would just depend. Does that happen? Does Stockton transfer? When does he transfer? I think we're getting well ahead of ourselves with that. But you at least look at it on paper, and South Carolina has situated themselves so well at the quarterback position I don't really know that they would be in a spot where they would feel like they had to do that. Like, I think they've really put themselves in a great situation moving forward. It can change very quickly, my point being. But right now, you would think and hope that you're not in a situation to have to do that. And, that they've got a good little mix right now. Obviously, Spencer Rattler is, the guy, but they've got a mix of younger guys, older guys, and then they're in a position, certainly in a great position with Dante Reno and some other guys moving forward too. So I think it sets up to where you wouldn't have to be in a spot to do that. I want to, Kendall, before we get out of here, and I know you got to go very shortly, I want to hit, let's see, one more question. Because Big Red had a bunch of questions, so I don't want to completely leave Big Red out. One of his questions was, are all these commits for next year or 2024? You sort of covered that, Kendall. One of the welcome homes that has not been revealed is for 2024. Otherwise, everybody else we've talked about other than Jalen Daniels is a 2023. Jalen Daniels will be on campus for the fall as a 2022. But then this was a question about Jalen Kilgore, is the fact that he can play wide receiver or safety, speak to his diversity, and can we use him offensively if needed? I think, yes, anytime a guy can excel at two positions, especially on offense and defense, I think that adds value. If it doesn't work out at one spot, you can always try him at another. Mm-hmm. Now, that said, everything I've heard about Jalen Kilgore has been about playing defense, playing safety. It hasn't even been like hinted at for him to play somewhere else. So I expect him to play DB, and I think he's going to be a very, very successful, good DB for South Carolina. But speaking in general, if a guy can play multiple positions, absolutely, that adds value. And, with Carolina, that's a great thing to get Kilgore. And the other thing we got to hit on before we get out of here, Kendall, is we got to tell everybody real quickly also about, we talked about them a little bit earlier, but our friends at Liberty Tax here in Columbia. Do you still have taxiety, Kendall?
Yes, I have taxiety. I have anxiety about all the things that are going to happen when I graduate college and have to do taxes and mortgages. And this show just reminds me of it every day.
This is a very adulting show. I know,
it is.
803-462-5576. They will help you overcome your taxiety, Kendall. So you got to hit up the tax team at Liberty Tax locations in Columbia, Irmo, and Lexington. And actually, they can really help you to go ahead and plan for what might be happening with your taxes so that it doesn't just have to be a stressful situation. Next April, you can already know kind of what you're going to be looking at from a tax standpoint. And also, if you own a business, if you're starting a business, then, they can help you to set up things so that your tax burden will either not be quite as bad or so that you can be prepared for what that tax burden may look like. And, Kendall, the folks at Liberty Tax, and of course, our buddy Clint Hammond, they help make this show possible. So we certainly appreciate them giving us the opportunity to hop on here and run our mouths when we want to on VC Live.
Yes, I'm so grateful for them. I also want to say really quickly before we get out of here that I am so lucky I get to work with some of the best people in the business here at South Carolina. Wes, Colin, Chris, Brian, Mike, Michael, everybody. I'm so grateful for them. They are some of the best people that I know, and they are some of the most high character people that I know as well. So everybody remember that. You heard it here straight from me. That is the truth. All facts, no printer. They're the best. And I'm just super grateful for them and all they've allowed me to do. And I would trust them. There are very few people that I would trust, but I trust them always, no matter what. So thank you so much. We have a wonderful staff at Gamecock Central, honest, truthful, wonderful, great people that I am so lucky to be able to work with and spend time with. So I did have to say that before we get out of here. But speaking of Gamecock Central, you can follow us on all of our social media at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, You know what it is. Go follow us. Subscribe at GamecockCentral.com. We got a ton coming out this weekend. Is going to be huge with the official visit, so you don't want to miss out on any of the action. Wes, another GC Live in the books. We'll be back with more soon. Hopefully you all have a wonderful week. He's Wes Mitchell, and I am Kendall Smith. See you guys soon.